تبدأ هذه الجلسة العلمية المباركة رقمها 17 وستسيرها بإذن الله الدكتورة رجاء أبو العيش. لكم كلمة أستاذتي، لن أطيل. بطبيعة الحال أفضل أن تكون كل المناقشات باللغة الإنجليزية حتى يستطيع الأساتذة، لأن كل الأستاذ أداما والأستاذ سيني يتكلمون الإنجليزية، أداما يتكلم الفرنسية، عند الضرورة قد يستعمل الفرنسية. لكم كلمة أستاذتي الفاضلة.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monsef. I have the pleasure to chair this session, which will be attended by eminent experts and professor researchers like Dr. Hima SEYNI and Dr. Adama and of course Dr. Sami Sewilem. Mrs. ZINEB AABBAD, PhD student at the AABBAD MOHAMMEDIA School of Engineering, will undoubtedly be able to benefit from their suggestions and remarks to guide her work, which is at its beginning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another time, I sincerely thank our colleagues, especially Dr. Monsef Ben Taibi, who have been organizing these events for years and who have given us the opportunity to participate and benefit from colleagues and experts in the field of Islamic finance and economy. Thank you very much, all the participants, and I will give the PhD student ZINEB AABBAD the occasion to present her work, and thank you for all of participants of this session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Abu Al-Aish. Dear professors and fellow students, PhDs, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my work with you.
Some problem in your microphone.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it now better? Yeah. Okay. So I thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to share my work with such minds and experts. I am a student of MOHAMMEDIA School of Engineering. I was a student. I graduated in 2018. I worked for 3 years in finance and banking. And I decided to go back to my school and apply for a PhD in Islamic finance with Professor Abu Al-Aish. So the theme of my session is a blended cash Waqf scheme, and the theme of my PhD is an agent simulation for blended finance. This is the plan that I'm going to follow in my presentation. First of all, I'm going to explain how is the research paper that I'm going to present in this session is related to the general topic of my PhD. Then I'm going to give a summary of my paper, the research concerns and why is it important, how is it going to contribute to give a solution to these concerns. Then I'm going to explain the theoretical framework. And then we have a more practical framework, which is the multi-agent simulation methodology. However, I should mention that this part isn't fully done yet. I'm going to present the idea and how I want to do it. And I'm hoping that you can give me your feedback. Finally, because we couldn't fully finish the multi-agent simulation methodology, I'm going to present the possible research results of such simulation and the discussion and how I'm going to do it in the future. So yeah, as mentioned by Professor Abu العيش. I'm part of the Islamic Financial Engineering Laboratory at MOHAMMEDIA School of Engineering. So first of all, how is the research paper related to the PhD team? As mentioned before, my PhD team is the Mutation Simulation of Blended Finance. In this paper, I'm going to present a multi-agent simulation of a cash Waqf blended finance scheme. The idea is to mix Islamic finance with blended finance. And before going any further, I need to define what is blended finance. It's actually the mixture of different funds. Generally, we have philanthropic funds and we have private investor funds. So the aim is to mix those financial sources in order to fund and develop sustainable projects. I need to mention that the sustainable projects needs to be a project that are designated to the general well-being. It cannot be any kind of commercial project where the only aim is to make a return. And so in order to do that, the idea is why not blend this conventional type of finance with Islamic finance, because we all know that Islamic finance gives many funding ways, such as zakat and waqf. And in this particular paper, we are going to tackle cash waqf. Islamic blended finance is something that existed. It was discussed in the literature by many PhD students and doctorants. And here we can see an example of a definition given by Professor Fatou of Islamic blended finance, which is, according to him, an optimal mixture of Islamic social funds like zakat, waqf, sadaqah, and penalties from delinquencies with a financial instrument for the purpose of financing socially responsible and positively impactful business for SDGs. So this gives us how the two topics are related. And now I'm going to further explain this paper and give a general summary. So the goal of this paper and the idea behind the paper is to design a financial product that combines, first of all, conventional and Islamic finance, and second of all, combines private public funds with philanthropic funds. So we all know that there is a product in the conventional finance that is called structured funds. Sometimes it's called mutual funds, hedge funds. It is a well-known product where many investors put on money that are managed by a professional. This professional gives the investors guarantees. He gives them what kind of instruments he wants to put their money in. For example, we can find funds that are only specialized in equity, funds that are diversified, and those funds are, there are conditions, and before going and investing in a fund, the investor already knows what he can expect and what return he expects and what risks he can get. So the idea is, why not having a fund where investors put their money, but we can also add to this money cash waqf funds. And with that, we will really raise a large amount of money that can be used in socially responsible projects. So this research gives a very practical framework for that. It describes the products, and we really wanted the products to be as real as it can get, and we want it to be for banks or other financial institutions to be able to really implement it in real life. And in order to validate this product, we thought that using multi-agent simulation was the best way to simulate how this product, what the results that it's going to be given, is the investors are going to be interested in this product, what returns can we expect, etc. So this was the general idea and the summary of my paper. Now, what are the concerns? Why is this paper important? We all know that in Morocco, especially, there is a really poor awareness of cash waqf. Based on my personal experience, I wasn't even aware that cash waqf existed. As in Morocco, it is generally related to property waqf, and people aren't really aware that they can waqf cash. I would say there is a lack of centralization of the waqf system in Morocco. It is true that the government manages many waqf properties, but if we were to manage these resources as it is managed by professional hedge fund managers, it could give us much more results. As someone who works in the financial system in Morocco, I worked in banks and in consulting firms, I can assure you that there's really a lack of products, of instruments that are based on Islamic products. So you can find many kinds of products if you want to invest your money. Banks will give you a list of possible ways, but if there isn't really much or no Islamic instruments that are offered by banks. So we need to tackle this issue. And finally, the problem with blended finance that it is always designated to socially responsible products, and many investors don't put their money in this kind of projects because it is risky and they can't really see return, and so they are value-driven investors. They want to gain money, and they are the blended finance project doesn't really give that to them. So these are the concerns, and the solution given by this paper are a response to all these concerns. So we want to really give a way to attract private sector investments in sustainable projects. We want to propose a blended instrument replication in Islamic finance. We want to raise larger funds for sustainable projects. And finally, we want to really give a very scientific and proven method and simulation for those who want to use our product. Now I'm going to go in more details and really explain the framework that we are offering. So as I already explained, we want to mix private capital and development funding. The development funding that we are particularly interested in is Waqf or cash Waqf. When we mix those two capitals, we want to put them in sustainable projects. And before going any further, I want to define cash Waqf. Cash Waqf is the confinement of an amount of money by a funder and the dedication of its usufruct in perpetuity to the welfare of society. So I need to mention that there are conditions for this cash Waqf to be really considered Waqf, because you cannot put an amount of money and just consume it. This will be considered sadaqah. However, cash Waqf needs to be irrevocable. There need to be irrevocability conditions, which means that once a founder Waqf the cash, he cannot revoke that. There needs to be inalienable frozen assets, which means that this asset cannot be inherited or gifted. And the most important condition is perpetuity, which means that the money cannot be consumed. It needs to be invested, and the generated return can then be consumed by sustainable projects. There is many cash Waqf schemes. These are the cash Waqf schemes that are proposed by Professor Abdel Mohsin. In order to stay true and give the right information, I'm not going to really define all the kind of cash Waqf that are proposed by Dr. Abdel Mohsin. I'd rather give you the link in order to the paper in order to see this definition in more details. However, I'm going to focus on Waqf cash scheme, Waqf share scheme, which is a kind of a replication of the conventional funds that I talked about, where an institution creates a fund, issues Waqf shares with the determined value. The value is detailed, the computation method of this value is detailed in the paper that I've sent you. And these shares are going to be bought or sold to Waqf contributors. Each one can buy as many shares as he wants or as his budget allows. The collected money from these shares is going to be invested by a trustee in an Islamic product, and the generated benefits needs to be channeled to social projects. The projects must be defined by the trustee, and the Waqf founders need to know what kind of projects their money is going to be used in. Now, what we propose. So we are going to use the same principles as described, the same principles of cash share scheme, but we are going to add to that private investors. So we want to create a fund that issues three kinds of shares that are dedicated to private sector investors who are looking for returns. So these kinds of investors are going to buy shares, and they will be expecting returns on their investments. Second type of shares that we want to issue is Waqf shares that are dedicated to Waqf contributors who just want to give up their money for the general well-being. The third option is a mix between the first two, which means we have investors that want to put their money as Waqf for the general well-being, but they expect a percentage of the return, which means they will put money, they will share buys, a percentage of the returns generated will go to Waqf and philanthropy. The rest, they want to take it and use it and benefit from it. Yes, so as explained, the money that is raised must be invested in this paper. We propose that this money will be invested in Islamic products, and then the benefits needs to go to social projects and investors. The Islamic products that we propose in this paper there are two kinds of products: low-risk products and high-risk products, because the money given as Waqf shouldn't be wasted. We cannot put this money in high-risk product. So what we propose is that in the first phase, we put these funds in low-risk products such as Ijara and Murabaha. When we get benefits from this investment, a part of this benefit can then be invested in high-risk products so that we maximize yield and return, but we minimize risk. And the revenue generated, as explained, will be given to shareholders, and then will be given to philanthropic projects. But this revenue is needs to be really well managed, because we need to the manager or the trust team must preserve the fund, and it needs to be perpetual. So he really needs to manage this money in a way that it can always produce revenue. The Professor Abdel Mohsin proposed that we do it this way. So normal share holders will receive the return according to the amount of their investment. Waqf share will not receive any benefits, and option shares buyer will receive a part of the benefits, and the rest will go to philanthropic purpose. As the money rate for philanthropic purpose, 10% of this money must be a builder reserve, which means this part of the money must be put again in the capital and invested again. 70% of this money should finance social projects, and 20% of this money will finance high-risk investments, as explained before, which is the second phase of our investment. Now, that was the framework of the product that we proposed. As for the simulation, we want to make sure that this product will attract investors, will give good results, and we will have clients that buy our shares. So for that, we can use a mutation simulation, which is an agent-based model that simulates interaction between agents. The agents are logical. They use logic in order to make decisions. They can use their emotion to make decisions, their belief, and most importantly, which is the strength of this model, is that they can also they are also affected by their environment. So it means if another agent makes some kind of decision, this will affect the general environment, and this can change the general decision making. And of course, the agent's actions affects their environment in a way that for example, if many investors are interested in our products, they can say it to their friends, for example, and this will encourage much more people to buy our shares. In our model, in this paper, the agents, there are three types of agents. There are private investors that are driven by risk-return ratio, which means that when they are going to choose if they want to invest in a conventional fund or in an Islamic blended fund, they will use this formula. They will compute the risk ratio return in order to assess if it's acceptable by them, if the risk and the ratio and the return is acceptable by the parent, by the agent. So each agent must set a stop loss, which means that as an investor, I'm going to say that this amount of money, I want to invest this amount of money. I'm ready to gain 5%, or I want to gain 5% on my investments, and I'm ready to lose 2%. If I'm starting to lose more than 2%, I need to stop the investments and sell my shares. The second type of investors are the Waqf founders, which means people that only want to share to buy shares and give up the returns for philanthropy. These kind of agents, or the Waqf founders, make their decisions based on the social impact of the fund. If the social impact of the fund is greater than what he wants or what he is expecting, then he is going to buy the shares. The social impact can be computed in many ways, and we want in our paper in the future to define a scoring method or a computational method that allows us to estimate the social impact of a fund based on the projects, the social projects that he wants to invest in. The third type is the buyers of the option shares, which are Waqf founders that wants to benefit from a percentage of the return and give the rest to philanthropy. Their decision is based on both parameters that we defined. They are based on the rate ratio and on the social impact. So the formula that is described is that each agent will give, for example, he will give a 10% importance to the return, to how much return he is going to gain personally, but he gives 19% importance to the social impact of the fund. There are going to be agents that want like 50-50. They want 50% of the benefits and 50% can go to philanthropy. So the decision is going to be driven by these two parameters. Finally, as I said, this model is not implemented yet. It is still in progress. So there is two possible results. The first hypothesis is that this product will attract investors. They will buy shares. The investment will be positive and it will generate return. And an important fund will be raised for social projects, and we can see this impact on the society. The second hypothesis is that the investor will not be really interested by our product. They will prefer to go to normal and conventional funds, and that this will not be good for us because we will not be able to raise enough funds. We will have a weak social impact, and we won't be able to really generate much profit from the first phase of investment. I'm hoping that we get the first hypothesis result. And as I said, this is still in progress, and we are still working on the simulation.
Okay, thank you, ZINEB, for your presentation. And we will move to the discussion of this paper. I would ask to the eminent professors and the participants to introduce himself before giving his comments, and we will start with Professor Adama.
Assalamu alaikum. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well. Very well.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting topic, very relevant, and I read it carefully and or at least 2 or 3 times. I have some remarks. One is the topic is very relevant and timely topic, because just 2 months ago in Dakar we have a scientific forum about Waqf and his new development. Second point I want to raise is the Waqf is one of the main components of the redistribution mechanism of the Islamic economic system to take care of the incapable or less capable in the society. So we have to interest to follow this. But for me, what is more interesting also is
تحيدي الديابوزيتيف ديالك من فضلك.
عندك.
عباد صافي. السلام عليكم.
Now I see more faces. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Adama.
Sorry for...
Vous pouvez continuer. Si vous pouvez arranger un petit peu la caméra pour qu'on vous voit mieux. La caméra.
Ouais, j'ai essayé.
Comme ça, c'est mieux. Très bien, très bien.
Voilà, j'ai même mis le caftan marocain pour faire local.
Je sais que vous êtes un amoureux du Maroc.
Voilà, la prochaine fois, il faut m'inviter en présentiel.
Inch'Allah.
Est-ce que vous voulez que je commande en anglais ou en français?
Mais de préférence en anglais, s'il vous plaît.
En anglais. So I continue. Thank you very much, Taibi. The third point I raised is recently the paradigm there is a shift in the paradigm with new research direction, and this topic is one of this new research direction to treat some concern, revitalizing the Waqf to make it an instrument of wealth creation, income distribution, and infrastructure development. So we have three main components. Second concern also was to strengthen the collaboration between Waqf and Islamic finance institution, such as to allow the Waqf institution to have a more wider range of Waqf assets and their application. Because in Waqf we need some resources. That's why this topic is really is also interesting. And also we need to develop some other measures, supporting measures, like good management, because we have this, when we go through the literature review, we have some problems of management. Also to have Waqf management team of professionals in managing resources. So that's another one. And we also need to move the exploitation of Waqf funds on commercial terms that would allow them to be invested and managed in such way that they guarantee the preservation of the capital, given that the Waqf is destined to generate benefits for future generations. I didn't find in the paper. I have some little question regarding the objective of the study, which is to estimate the social impact and financial impact. So we need to have some more detail on the estimation, quantitative or qualitative, and simulation methodology, choice, advantages, and limits of that methodology. When we are doing PhD, we need to give this. Why you choose one methodology, its advantage, the weakness, all these things. Also, I have some problem with the bibliography references. It seems there is a lot of development in this recent year. So the last one year is from 2015. For me, we miss. In any way, I will send my notes. We will see. There is one paper is very interesting, and we give a broad review of the recent development in Waqf topics, and also the study case, which country or which region, the pool data, estimation of period. I didn't find this thing. This thing is a paper. So as I say earlier, it's very interesting topics. So I will follow it, and I think I will be when the paper is more elaborate, I will have one copy, because I'm working in the Waqf authority in Senegal. So I have to follow experiences of other countries. In my notes, I give one very interesting paper to our sisters. Literature lessons from government and future direction. Very interesting, because it's dating from 2020, and you have broad. Really, I give the reference so you can get it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Next time, invite me in Morocco and speak in French also. I prefer. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adama, for your encouragement and for your proposition and remarks. And we will move to Dr. Hima. Please, Dr. Hima, if you could present yourself before giving your question and remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raja. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Thank you, ZINEB, for this wonderful subject. But before I go through to in details, I have made a quite a large assessment. First of all, in terms of format and the content assessment. Now let's come to the format assessment.
Yeah.
And you see, when you are making any statement in terms of research paper, you need to make sure your everything is clear. The introduction is clear, the reason, the motivation, and the investigation you are going to make to see the research itself. I mean, the statement of the problem need to be very, very clear. It's the first point, remark look at in your paper. Now, when you look at your literature review, honestly, there is no critical evaluation. I mean, the paper has been presented without a very, we need to see a kind of literature and evidence understanding of the idea you are raising, a clear indication of the full theory which is behind the choice of this subject. The third point, the methodology, there is no research, there's no methodology you are trying to apply. You cannot make a research without method. You need to have a method idea where you going to, how you going to carry this study of bland cash flow. Because one way one know that there is something which is very important, which I want to mention to you. One of the main challenges facing the industry itself is the innovation when we look at the product, because most of in the industry today, what is using is the traditional product which people are using all the time. Now, the case you are presenting as a subject, bland cash work, is a very innovative product, which is very important because we need to create something which will benefit the society and the community. Then this is the reason why you need to go a little bit further in terms of methodology. Now, that the data as well, there is no data analysis on your paper. If you need to look at it to be able to carry on properly. In terms of conclusion and recommendation as well, if we need to see reference of the purpose of the study, which is related to the literature review. And the area of further study, we saw it, try to make it, it's good, but you need to be consistent on this point. Now, in terms of presentation, the research is not structure. The structure of the research, I mean, you are more convincing when you are talking. But when it comes about the paper you're presenting itself, then the logic, the coherence, and the compartments, I mean, the academic standards are a little bit causing fuzzy. You need to look at it. Now, when you come about the content assessment, this is just the format itself. But when you go through the content assessment, your research can be argued because in your introduction, I mean, as I said, there is no clarity in the word, the concept used. You talk about the private partnership, philanthropy, and sustainable development. The concept of sustainable development is very wide because today, when you are talking about sustainable development, we think about ending poverty and climate change, inequality, all these issues. Then the use of the concept and the word need to be clearly measured. How? Because you need to, when you say something in terms of research, you need to know why you are saying it. And did you get the point? It's very good, the term itself. Now, what I am suggesting, you need to define the concept. Not only by one author is saying something, and you need to group idea and concept to try to make your own critical analysis and to put it to lay down. This is we will feel better when we get this kind of things. Now, the objective of your research as well is not consistent. You need to have very consistent objective. because we talk about PhD. We need to see you writing a lot of ideas, a lot of literature, a lot of, you need to go everywhere in terms of research. Now, then the references system is a little bit, cannot say weak, but the analysis and the literature just need to be, you have just used a couple of literature. For PhD, you need to have a lot of literature to resume, to analyze and make a recommendation. All this is very, very important. You know? I mean, I can say the literature is insufficient in terms of the paper you are presenting. You need to go further because we need to have evaluation, and we can make a serious review in terms of conclusion. Now, in terms of the point of recommendation on this paper, and I mean, try to make your research paper should be conveyed clearly, concisely, what you wish to study. Clearly, we know it's blank card because even blank card, the definition is just one definition, but you need to make it a very strong, heavy student researcher which will lay down. I mean, this what we need, and the objective. You need to review your objective, right? Research objective as well. In order to do that, you need to have a list of academic articles and books, journals, which will inspire your interest on the chosen topic. To try to summarize the content, I'm very happy the way you discuss, you define the idea, but you need to summarize all this content, which can be a case of debate. This will give you a full idea to make a very, very good objective of research. Now, in terms of outline the theory, the body of the theory with your result related. I mean, the literature review again need to be the disposition. When you say someone said this, someone said this, you have at least 100 in England when you are doing literature review. You need to have at least 150 to 200 paper combined with books to be able to summarize and critical analyze. You know, then the original contribution. Today, Islamic finance industry, I mean, for example, the question of work is a very complex situation. We need to see a contribution, research contribution in the industry, because to write and to talk is very easy, but the result of all this is the most important. And this is what will contribute to the development of the industry itself. Then you need to look at the original contribution. I mean, knowledge in your choosing and blank catch work, the methodology as well, you need to be consistent. Now, there is, again, in the recommendation, there is one thing I'm saying, because Islamic banking and finance, all this compartment work, when it comes about Waqf, then you need to have a kind of policy recommendation to better mobilize Waqf resources. I mean, structure, legal structure, with to mobilize this fund, because this is very important. And as well, creation of management, how this cash work system will be managed in terms of, it's very complex because it's not an easy thing, but in terms of PhD research study, you can make something very consistent, can be under reference for even the government or for everybody. Now, the legal framework as well, you should make a possible segment, you know, for, say, for example, let's say in Morocco, any group or institution can regroup together to be able to create it work. Like we are doing it in England, for example, the Moscow work which they are using to develop so many segments of way activities. You know, this is in terms of recommendation what I going to suggest to you. And I wish you all the best. We will see furthermore if how this research is going. Try to communicate it since we have your email address. We see to follow up. But it's overall is a very good job and a very good subject, which is more can contribute a lot in terms of innovation in the Islamic banking and work industry itself. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raja.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hima,
Yeah,
for
thank you.
your remarks and constructive suggestion. And we will move to Dr. Sami Al-Swailem, Director of the IDB Institute. We thank him another time for his continued support to the AFI Lab.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام.
وعليكم السلام دكتور سويلم سامي سويلم.
Thank you, Dr. Raja. Thanks to Sister ZINEB and thanks to the discussant before me. I'm honored always to participate in the activities of the Islamic Financial Engineering Lab at Muhammad Al-Khamis University. I appreciate the effort of the student in developing the model. Yes, it is true that she based the whole thing on one model, which is that of Abdul Muhsin. So maybe she wants to diversify a little, or at least compare different models and see how she can benefit or develop an optimized model, so to speak. Now, whether Waqf is perpetual or not, there are two views on whether Waqf must be perpetual or could be temporary. Waqf al-Mu'aqqat. You could have, now, what are the benefits of temporary cash Waqf? There are benefits, but there are costs. If we think of temporary cash Waqf as a Waqf that will stop after, let's say, 1 year, then obviously this will hurt beneficiaries. Although it will benefit donors or contributors because it provides them with liquidity, but it will hurt the beneficiaries because the project or whatever benefits, it will be disturbed or interrupted. So one way out, given the model of cash Waqf shares, that these shares can be traded, which means they can, if I buy a share now, I can sell that share after 6 months, after 1 year, with the condition that any value above and over the nominal value, of course, I will give up. Or I will keep part of it depending on the idea of option shares, which I will come to later on. The point is, if we give donors the right to trade these shares or to exchange or to redeem these shares, we get the benefit of temporary Waqf from the donor's point of view, which is they have the right now to exit the Waqf. So rather than you tell the donor, this is life, this is forever. If you give up 100,000 dirham, you will never get this 100,000 back. Now, some people might be interested in this, but not all people might be interested. If you tell people, you have the right either to put this 100,000 forever, or you can put it there for 1 year, 2 years, then obviously the domain or the segment of donors will be larger. You will get more potential donors if you offer temporary Waqf or if you offer cash Waqf shares holders the right to redeem or to trade or to exchange their share. So I think this is, however, this temporary arrangement for the Waqf donor will not affect the beneficiaries, right? Because the money is there. If I want to redeem my shares, I will get it from another donor. I will not take the money back from the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries will not be affected. So we get the best of both worlds, so to speak. We give the donors the opportunity to redeem or to exit the Waqf without affecting the beneficiaries. So from the asset side, so to speak, it's perpetual. From the liability side, it's temporary. So this is financial engineering, right? So we are talking about Islamic financial engineering. So this is one way to engineer the Waqf fund. On the asset side, whatever the assets that the money collected through the cash Waqf shares is invested in, these assets will be perpetual. In one way, or in other words, the lifetime of these assets will not be affected. However, on the liability side, those donors, they can exit, they can redeem by offering their shares to other donors who in turn might, also offer their shares to other donors and so on. And in this manner, we allow more and more people to participate as donors without affecting the stability and sustainability of the Waqf project on the asset side. Okay, so I think this might help improve the model that the researcher is working on. The researcher talked about blended, which is obviously a good idea, but why not to blend zakat with Waqf or any charity? Because just as there are people who are willing to give up money as Waqf, there are people who are willing to give up as charity, as zakat. Now, this zakat admittedly might not be a large portion, but it will help support the project and enhance the return on the Waqf project. Okay. Now, so the researcher discussed how to use the money for the money of the Waqf in low risk projects, which makes obviously a lot of sense. But are you saying all of the money will be invested in Ijara and Murabaha?
No, there will be actually two phases of investment. The first phase is to put the money in low risk projects in order to guarantee the capital, so that we guarantee that we are not going to lose the capital, and we will make a sure project, sure returns. And after that, using that return, we are going to invest in riskier and more riskier. When we say riskier projects, higher returns projects. Yeah.
So 100% of the capital or of the principal will be put in low risk.
Yeah.
Okay. Ijara and Murabaha. And are these Ijara and Murabaha for the benefits of the target beneficiaries or just standard Murabaha contract offered by Islamic banks?
No, standard Murabaha contracts. And as I explained, it's the return that it is going to be invested in sustainable projects and for the beneficiaries.
Okay. So here is an alternative way to think about it. Okay. Let's say 30% of the principal will be invested in low risk investments like Ijara or Murabaha. It's 30 or 40. The remaining 70% or 60% will be used as Qard Hasan or as Takaful. Okay. And this, see, cash Waqf, there are two ways to think about cash. How could you make cash Waqf? Obviously, cash cannot be used unless it is spent, right? It is a consumable commodity, so to speak, or a consumable asset. You cannot use the cash without spending it. So if you want to keep the principal while spending it at the same time, you can either use, let's say, Murabaha or Ijara, or you can also use Qard Hasan. So you can allocate a portion, let's say 50% or 60% or maybe 70%. This will, I think the simulation will show what would be the optimal or the reasonable proportion. But using the portion of the principal in Qard Hasan gives, I think, hits two birds with one stone. One, you guarantee the principal. Two, you are directly supporting the beneficiaries. While the model that we put 100% of the principal in Ijara and Murabaha, and these are standard Ijara and Murabaha contract, which means they do not address the needs of the beneficiaries directly. We have to wait until the return comes from these Ijara and Murabaha, and then invest these returns in projects which may generate higher returns or not. By the way, you are assuming that high risk, high return projects are the same as sustainable projects for the beneficiaries or for the target users, which may or may not be true. For example, if I want to invest in Apple shares or in any other high risk, high return company, I will get more benefit. But if I want to invest in microfinance, I will get high risk, low return. So your assumption that high risk, high return would be at the same time helping the target beneficiaries might or might not be accurate. You want to address this point? Go ahead.
Yeah, so in the paper, we only propose two types of high risk and high return projects or investments. And I must say it's still in progress, so we didn't really decide on which projects we are going to choose, but the idea was also that this Musharaka project will be in the sustainable well-being type of projects.
So this is the point. This assumption might or might not be accurate. To assume high risk, high return projects are equivalent to sustainable welfare improving and so on. These are two different things. You might have an overlap, okay, but these are two different Venn diagrams, okay? If you think of them, you have one circle for high risk, high return, another circle for sustainable welfare improving, and the intersection between these two circles might be large, might be small. We don't know, okay? However, if you think of using 50% of the principal or 60% of the principal directly to give Qard Hasan, okay, to beneficiaries, then you reduce the cost, you reduce the steps, rather than having too many steps until you reach the beneficiaries. You immediately deal. Now, when we say Qard Hasan, it doesn't mean charity. Qard Hasan means he has to repay back. So there has to be in place a very good credit management system. Okay, Qard Hasan doesn't mean Hasan will go away. Hasan will stay there, and therefore you have to check the credit worthiness of the borrowers. So it has to be clear.
If I may ask a question, because your proposition is really interesting. It's just that if we give Qard Hasan at 16% or 15% rate, are we going to be able to give back benefit to normal shareholder buyers?
Now, I'm coming to this point, which is what would be the return to shareholder. But let me finish first of all how to use the principal. So 30%, 40% of the principal will be invested in Ijara and Murabaha to generate return to cover the cost of managing the cash flow. The remaining 60% can be used for Qard Hasan, can be used for takaful. So you are offering free takaful, but again, this has to be managed properly. So when we say takaful, it's not charity again, it is takaful based on proper risk management procedures. So with this, I think we are enhancing this segment, the target segment of potential entrepreneurs, those who could be converted from deficit units to surplus units. Those who can generate wealth, and after maybe 2-3 years, they become themselves donors. Okay, so they graduate from receiving interest-free loans or qard hasan into the position that they become donors to the system. Now, how about the return to donors or to holders of the Waqf shares? In my opinion, you cannot make the cake and eat it at the same time. So if you want to convince buyers of the Waqf shares that they will get return as well, you are competing against yourself. This defeats the whole purpose. The whole idea is that you are addressing the humanitarian side of investors and wealthy people. Every person, whether Muslim or not Muslim, whether in the Middle East or Far East or Far North or Far South, every human being has a propensity to support fellow citizens in the community. So there is no shortage of good incentives. The problem is not in good incentives. The problem is in transparency and good governance. Once you have a system with good governance, verifiability, transparency, and so on, people will come and donate. And in my opinion, we better not to try to convince investors, no, you will get a financial return. I think we should not be looking at this. We should bet, so to speak, on their good natured incentives rather than, because no matter how you play it, no matter how you calculate it, the return will be lower. I mean, those social impact bond that they will get 2% instead of 6%. Why should I invest in 2%? If I am looking for a return, I know where to make a return. If I want to support social projects, I want the maximum social project. So this investor, okay, he will create a portfolio. Okay, you have Waqf shares. Okay, these Waqf shares generate zero return to the owners of these shares. If I'm an investor, I'll create a portfolio of having high risk, high return shares, ordinary shares, and Waqf shares. Khalas, I don't have to add this to the Waqf shares themselves. Okay. Now you could add this to your analysis, portfolio analysis. If you have good investment environment, is it possible to generate this kind of portfolio, which you have both Waqf shares, which generate zero material or money return, but they generate social impact or social return. And you have those ordinary investment shares that will generate maximum return, maximum monetary return. So in my opinion, you leave it to investors to decide how to manage their portfolio, rather than you decide how could the Waqf share allocate between social return. No, let them decide. They know their needs, they know their risk return preferences, they know their social preferences better than us. No matter how smart are we, no matter how intelligent are we, no matter how sophisticated the agent-based simulation is, we will not beat those people. So wealthy and investors, they will be able to manage their own portfolio. We don't have to worry about this. What we have to worry about is the governance of this Waqf system or these shares. We have to be sure the donor is able to verify that his money is actually making an impact to the economy and to his fellow citizens. Okay, these are my comments. Thank you very much again to Dr. Rajan, to the researcher, and to my colleague, the discussant, and for Dr. Monsef again, and to organizers of this very enriching and enlightening seminar. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Dr. Sue. Swaylem, for your interesting and constructive suggestion and remarks. And I will give some minutes to ZINEB to answer to the Professor Hima and Professor Adama, and also Dr. Swaylem.
Okay. Thank you everyone for the very constructive remarks. I really the goal of me participation in this seminar was to validate the concept. It's like a proof of concept, and the idea is to really explain how the fund is going to work with experts and very bright minds and get their feedbacks. So thank you everyone. As for the format of the research paper and the literature review, yes, it really lacks many sides of the standard research and PhD papers. The reason is we didn't want to go any further in this research if the concept isn't logically isn't validated. And it is still in progress, so I noted all the remarks, and I'm going to elaborate more on these remarks. As for the concept or the fund, I did the remarks that was given are really very interesting. Thank you, Professor Sami Al-Surin. So the first idea is to reallocate the principal. The percentage given, I'm sure they are well thought, but in my vision, the percentage of the allocation of the principal will depend on how many, like you said, high risk, high return shares we have, and how many Waqf shares we have. So if we have, for example, in our fund, 14% high risk, high return shares, the allocation of this amount will go to high risk, high return projects. The rest will go to philanthropic and sustainable projects. I don't know if this makes sense. And as for Waqf, as for Qard Hassan, I have a question. I will go and use this opportunity to ask because there are many experts. If I'm right, there is no interest in this kind of project and of this product, and it is not considered as charities. So, how is it going to generate return? If it's going to generate sustainable impact and social impact, but is it going to generate return? That's my question.
The 30% invested in Murabaha and Ijara will generate return to cover the costs. So you don't worry about how to cover the costs. So the 50% خلاص will be interest free, will be zero. Okay. Now you could say, now here is one thing, by the way, I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
When you give Qard Hassan, okay, to potentially credit-worthy entrepreneurs, you are building their reputational capital. You are giving the opportunity to those entrepreneurs, if they pay on time, which the majority of them will do, then they will build their reputational capital, okay, reputational equity. This reputational capital is more important to those entrepreneurs than the actual money that they receive, because if we are using, let's say, the blockchain for the credit worthiness and credit records for those entrepreneurs, these credit records can be verified by banks, by other lenders. And if they can verify that those people are good credit, they can offer them financing. larger amount of financing, but of course at a higher cost. And they will be able to move from small and micro into medium and probably large businesses. So you are helping those people to move or to graduate out of the trap or the poverty level at which they are.
And I also want to thank you very much for the idea of allowing investors to trade shares. It's really interesting, and as you can say, we will have to think about the gain from trading shares. How is it going to be allocated and used, and is it going to be kept by the investor or not? Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Hima and Dr. Adama, do you have other questions, other remarks?
Yeah, I want to say one word, but I want to discuss it with Dr. Sami and ZINEB as well. See, in the practice, sometimes we find some banks that are giving card hazard, but they're charging service fees. Practically. For example, let's say bank want to give $1,000 for a client, then he's taking $30 just for service fees in order to give him the card Hassan free interest. In Sharia perspective, some institutions are doing it. What do you think, Professor? Because this become like wanted to become like a discussion weekly, because some institution here in the UK and some institution I know as well in Africa they do it for child services. Doctor, just to open a little bit the discussion regarding this contra of Khan Hassan to, because you know the market.
Thank you, Dr. Hima. That's why we said we should allocate 30% of the principal into income generating investments. So if we have $10,000 as cash waqf, we will invest, let's say, $4,000 into ijara and murabaha. That will generate returns. These returns will cover the cost, the service costs. And therefore, the remaining 6,000 can be given properly as qard hasan. But let me again emphasize, this should be qard. It is not charity, it is a loan. So the beneficiary must return back the money. Why? Because the money will be used again and again and again. And in the process, let me repeat this point again, along the process, the beneficiaries will build their reputation, will build their credit worthiness, which is much more important than the physical or money capital that they could get. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Because theoretically, Doctor, I'm sorry to take your time. When you look the concept of work, especially in Africa, everybody are saying, no, we are going to the IDB. We tell them to give us money. I say, no, it's confusing me. I say, no, these institutions, are public institutions, and multinational corporation, they're giving you money for what? Just free? It's a very complex. The concept that this, the idea to have a very good governance and a policy regarding this work need to be looked at with very strong care. If not, the development will cause problem, because everybody I know think that way. We go to the IDB, they will give $1 million, you come with distributing. But if you are distributing $1 million, then what's enough? Then it's finished. No more work. I mean, conceptually, this is what I'm facing about education and discussing. And the experience we have here in England, they're using the work to develop, to get user-free and keep the machine working, but in a technical way, the way everybody will be in the balance and things will develop. Thank you very much, Dr. Raja. Thank you, Zainab.
Thank you.
I appreciate all of your interaction.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Adama, do you have another remark?
No, just to encourage Sister Zainab to go more deeper in the literature review, because you need to show what's your contribution, what's new. So you have to, as I say earlier, this last year there is a lot of work, because we want to reshape Waqf to be able to have a consistent return. So we need to manage Waqf using, for example, the commercial techniques or other things. So goes as Professor Hima said, you have to follow the standards. You will be suffer a little bit. You ask to Prof. Ben Ivy to give you my email so I can share it. In two months ago in Dakar, we organized a scientific forum on Waqf. So I have time to, I have the opportunity to go deeper in this literature. So I can share this the paper I had in my laptop.
Thank you very much. It's going to be very helpful.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adama. Are there some questions from the participants of the session? Are there another
I forgot
question?
I forgot to present myself. I'm Dr. Adama, retired from the Central Bank. And yes, I'm working now in social and social finance. I'm happy also to see Sami as well, because I read a lot of his papers. So maybe one day Sami will invite me at the IRT as visiting researcher. I hope.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much, everybody. I need to present myself as well, because my name is Dr. Hima, based in the UK, working for London School of Modern Studies and American University for Leader. And I work as a consultant for most of some mosque here to modelize fund, how we, and as a wakil, and in some bank in Africa, I'm a Sharia board member like Police Bank, and Laser Finance. I'm a lecturer as well, Transnational Delivery, Africa and UK. This is what I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all our eminent experts and for your constructive remarks and suggestions. And I will give the final conclusion to Dr. Monsef. Thank you very much another time, and thank you for all our participants.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Doctor.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام.
لا نسمعك دكتور منصف، لا نسمعك.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذة رجاء. نعم. شكرا جزيلا أستاذة رجاء، نشكركم على هذه المشاركة الطيبة.
In English.
Oui, mon frère, je m'excuse. Donc, il y a Dr Adama qui est avec nous, donc je vous remercie pour cette participation, et donc je félicite la doctorante pour avoir eu cette opportunité de discuter avec d'éminentes personnalités. Donc, au plaisir de vous retrouver, Inch'Allah, dans une autre session. Merci.
Merci beaucoup à tous pour votre participation et Dr Monsef de nous avoir donné cette opportunité.
Merci, Dr Raja.
Salam alaikum. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum.